co-host.
Stan the man.
We're excited to talk to you about pre-release prep for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. But before we do, Stan, there's been a lot of hype around these spree cards and like how broken they're gonna be. Like, give me a baseline. What do you think this is gonna do? Like in constructed in some of the formats that we play.
So the spree cards are all sweet. There's only a couple that kind of suck. I was pretty disappointed with the black one, but the white and the blue one, actually the green one too. Wow. As far as the rares go, at least, because there's some uncommon ones that are pretty nasty. Like the red uncommon was Wild Ricochet, which is really, really cool. But the blue and the white one are like really, really good for control decks, obviously. But speaking of that, yesterday, one of my buddies, Texas, was like, hey, I have a rules question, if you don't mind. I was like, okay. He's like, so the spree cards, I just want to make sure I understand how this works. So Final Showdown, which is white and then spree for one, or spree for 3 and white, so 5. The big spree is destroy all creatures, and it's an instant, so it's kind of crazy. One of the +1 modes is target creature you control, or no, all creatures you control. Sorry. You choose one of your creatures, it gains indestructible, right?
Yes.
And then the other mode is humility, where all creatures lose all abilities. Yep. But it's layered in the way that they lose all their abilities first, and then you can give your creature indestructible, so you can do both. Unfortunately, it doesn't target, actually. So what I was about to say was he was trying to use it with Feather, but I was like, oh, it doesn't target. Never mind.
Well, it says choose a creature you control.
Right. So because it doesn't target the creature, you can't like bring it back with Feather. He's like,
Sure.
I want to loop this with Feather. And I was like, in my head, I thought it said target because I wasn't looking at the card.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, if it says target, it should work. You should get it back after you field nuked and you kept all your guys. But if it worked that way and actually targeted, oh my God. The blue one is really reminiscent of Cryptic Command in a lot of ways. It's obviously like weaker in a lot of ways because Cryptic Command is 4 mana. And for this one, I think counter draw is like 5 or 6 mana. But because you have that third option, it feels really nasty. So the blue one is called 3 Steps Ahead. Blue instant 1 drop. If you add blue and 1 on the spree, counter spell, so it's a cancel. But if you pay 3 more mana, you can make a token of an artifact or a creature you control, which is kind of cool, just to get some value or upside off your counter spell. It can inadvertently be a win condition in that way. And then for +2 more on a third spree, you can draw 2 cards and discard a card. So that honestly is kind of stronger than Cryptic Command in some ways, where you're like looking at more cards. Maybe the discard matters because we've seen a lot of blue decks recently. They want to discard cards, especially for cards like Reenact a Crime, etc. But you know, this card seems really good. I definitely think it's going to get played in Pioneer along with the white spree. I'm almost certain they both get played in Standard. Like I've been playing Azorius Control, as you guys know, and like both of these cards just kind of slot right in. I've been begging for an instant speed field nuke or like a planar cleansing type of thing. And the fact that it makes creatures lose all their abilities, now you can deal with like practically any creature. They're not going to be able to use indestructible as a response anymore because of Final Showdown if you have the mana. And then the green one, that one is just so gross. I know our buddy Julian's already been talking about using it in Greasefang, but it's almost like a tooth and nail. The card itself is it the Smuggler's Surprise? Is that the one? Smuggler's Surprise, yeah. So I'll let Frank read this one out for you guys, but it's just so gross.
Smuggler's Surprise. It's 1 green, instant, spree, +2, mill 4 cards. You may put up to 2 creature and or land cards from among the milled cards into your hand, plus an additional 4 and green. You may put up to 2 creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. An additional 1, creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
Yeah, so like you can obviously see if you played Pioneer the implications of being able to just like grab your Greasefang out of the graveyard and just give it hexproof. You're for sure going to reanimate a Parhelion, but there's going to be a lot of decks abusing this. I think people were already talking about putting like a Trexa in Greasefang because now you're like, oh, I'll just drop in a Trexa with Smuggler's Surprise and then maybe get my Greasefang back as well. If you just have the mana for it, now you have some kind of late game payoff as well. So Greasefang obviously like would struggle if they go late. This is a kind of card that kind of helps with that issue. The black spree, wasn't very good in my opinion. So I'll just like briefly mention that one of the modes I believe was target player loses half their life. So one of the cute interactions is that with Bloodletter of Aclazotz, it's a one shot. Assuming it rounds up if they're at odd. But
it does round up.
Yeah, so black 1, Rush of Dread. Pay spree for 1, target opponent sacrifices half their creatures, rounded up. Pay 2 on the spree, target opponent discards half their hand, rounded up, and then +2 again, target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. So for 5 mana, you can make them lose half their life. It's lethal on turn 5 if you have a Bloodletter in play, but at the same time, like all these modes for how much mana you're paying, I don't know. I'm like really mid on this one. But Black did get a lot of other cool cards in the set, as we'll get into later. One of my favorite cards being the Tiny Bones, the one-drop Tiny Bones, like the Ragavan for Pioneer.
He's so cute.
Very cute, but also disgusting. So you can use Tiny Bones. He has a 1/1 with Death Touch for 1 mana. If he connects with your opponent for damage, you can cast a non-land card out of their graveyard, or non-land permanent. So you can't take their sorceries, but you can take non-land permanents out of their graveyard. And I believe you can use any color mana to pay for the spells. So it's just going to be a nasty card. I mean, we've already seen like Esper Legends and stuff like that, 5-color Legends. This kind of slots right into Standard and maybe even Pioneer. We could see a comeback of like those Legends decks. This guy just kind of slots right in. Or even like a mono black. Like we were trying mono black for a while in Standard. Just a crazy card. But yeah, in general, the set just looks so good. Frank's going to give you the rundown for pre-release after we get into housekeeping, but very exciting. I personally was saying online, Frank and I were giving each other a little bit of flack, but I was saying 4 sets in a row, in my opinion, just bangers, like Wilds of Eldraine, Ixalan, Murders, so good for constructed. All the cards really powerful. However, Ixalan did have the problem of not being a great limited set compared to the others. I wouldn't even say it was that bad. I personally enjoyed it, but Murders and Wilds were just so much better.
So good.
And honestly, even March of the Machine, besides the fact that it was legal for like 20 weeks without another standard set, was a really good set as well. And then we can exclude Aftermath, which they more or less fixed in Thunder Junction. So we'll talk about it more later. But for those that don't know, there's a lot of special sheets in Thunder Junction. So the packs are going to be kind of juiced because they've got like the special guests, the big score, and I think there's like a third sheet of unique cards as well that are all just like really sought after cards. A lot of the new spoilers are just like so powerful, and because the reason why they put them all in there is because they didn't want to do a second Aftermath set after the surveys came into WotC, and across the board people were like Aftermath was terrible. They really executed it poorly in my opinion.
Well, and it was bad for stores as well because like
people
just didn't want to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because they costed just as much as like a normal pack.
Right.
They had less cards in it. Most of the cards like you didn't even know if you wanted. And truthfully, there's only a couple of cards that people use, period.
A lot of the cards were strong, but because the packs were so expensive and nobody opened the product, stores had to just rip through their product and it tanked all the value of the cards.
Yeah.
What Pokemon does, which is really similar to what Aftermath is they do special sets like Paldean Fates, Shining Fates, Hidden Fates, etc. And those will be legal in Standard, and it'll be a special subset, but they only do bundles. They don't do box, packs, etc. It's just a bundle. Buy the $40-$50 thing, get the 8 packs. But they also have like bonus sheets. So it'll have like the equivalent of like Secret Lair cards or expeditions in that specific set. So that makes people want to buy it, and then the cards in it will also be pretty good for Standard because, like, if we're being honest, Aftermath did have really good cards. It's just they flopped on the delivery, and the price was just so high. It's Hasbro. You guys know how it is. We never stop complaining about them. They always want to overcharge for products, honestly. But fundamentally, I think Aftermath was a good idea. They did it in the worst way possible, and Pokemon already does it well. However, we'll probably never have to worry about it again after that survey. They failed it big time, and all the cards are now in Thunder Junction.
Yeah. What I was thinking just about this set as like a brief like opening, like a prologue, a preface, is that it feels like not only with commons and uncommons, which they've been doing for a while now, where they add modality. Like for example, I forget what set it was. It was like a mana dork that then could like make a 7/7 later, or like could turn creatures into lands or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where they're making mana dorks useful in the late game. It's like you hated mana dorks once you got past turn 5, 6, or 7,
Right.
limited. Well, now we're seeing with all these spree cards that they're making rare cards that normally had like some type of limitation where like you probably wouldn't want to play it in constructed, giving it modality to be like, oh, it does this, but if you pay more, it could do this.
Right.
Which I think is going to like really change standard to be like, I want this card for multiple reasons. And even though it's not great at this one thing that I want it to do, it has these bonus things, which makes the card worth playing. Because there are some, decks where you're like, oh, I have these as like sideboard slots because I need this for a very niche matchup. Well, now that some of the cards are doing that on their own, it's like,
it's kind of like pick your poison. It's like, well, got them all.
Yeah.
No,
it's
I
not
totally
like
agree.
awesome at one thing. You don't necessarily want to mainboard it, but like as a sideboard card, it does all the things.
Right. It's 100% true to your point. Like for example, the blue spell, it is a counter spell. So it's a cancel in essence, right? And cancel is like unplayable, right?
Unplayable.
Basically unplayable. Even in standard nowadays, like context to the formats, they always have to have like a bonus. Like Dissolve had Scry 1. And even nowadays that might not even be playable, right? But this one is like, oh, you're gonna draw 2 cards and discard a card. So you might even play that just because it draws cards and like slot it where Memory Deluge would have been. But now it's also your Disruption Protocol. And it looks that much better as a result. So now your deck is like, well, we can't all play Yorion, so we got to find a way to make 60 cards fit more than 60 cards. And like the white spell, as an example, Final Showdown, it's not just a control card. It protects your creatures and it makes their creatures worse. So for a mid-range deck like mono white, or even like a Bolgos type of deck, you're like, protect my guys, make sure my guys are better than your guys. But I also have the ability to wipe your board if I need to. And now you have like these alternate modes, like you don't have to sideboard that bad field nuke in your Bogles deck for Boros Convoke or something.
Yeah.
It's very cool. One thing I will say about it that one of our friends in Discord was asking me to cover specifically was true to like all the modalities and the cards having like all this extra text. It is really cool for us with experience. We really like it. I personally love how complex the cards are nowadays. But as we mentioned in Wilds of Eldraine, I don't know if you remember, it's been months now since that podcast episode, but we were talking about how like all the cards were like a paragraph, and we're like, wow, every single card in this in this set, you got to have like your glasses on, and the cards are just getting more and more complex and more text on them overall. And this set really speaks volumes to that. It's like he was saying, it's called complexity creep, where like the cards aren't necessarily more powerful like across the board. They're not like super broken, but they're definitely a lot harder for a new player to get into. So for those of you guys that want to get your friends into the game, you really got to like help them out. It's not like back in the day where you hand them the vanillas and you're like, okay, this is how combat works. Now this is how sorceries work. If you want your friends to play Magic nowadays, honestly, Commander's not even the most complicated format anymore. You might as well just get them a precon and then just help them out. The rulebook for Magic is so large now, so like you just gotta be patient with new players, and especially at pre-release.
Well, speaking of that, when I was building like our sheet, our document for notes for the episode, there were like, after I had done my general, like, this is what cards do, these are new abilities, all of it, they had like just cards that they were giving specific tips on for interactions. I am not kidding. I was scrolling for like 5 full minutes because they had so many cards that they were like, well, this interaction happens with this and this and this. And I was like, you guys can go read that on your own because I'm not gonna talk through any special interactions.
Yeah, it'll take so long.
It would take forever. And
Just
I'm not a judge.
Be ready to try to play fast at pre-release and keep your opponents honest, because some of these games might go long just from reading.
Yeah, well, with that, I think let's get into housekeeping because we're going to have a long episode knowing that it is a pre-release episode.
Right.
So first off, housekeeping. If you want to support our channel, there is a handful of ways to do that. You can give us a follow on Twitch. You can give us a follow on Twitter. You can give us a follow on YouTube. Specifically with YouTube, shout out to Tim Stoffel for winning our giveaway. and getting that box of MKM. Did you end up handing it to him this week?
Yeah, he picked it up.
Nice. He was so excited, which I was, glad.
Yeah, I was glad one of our locals got it this time. I didn't have to ship anything out.
Right,
He just came in. He's like, I want my box. I was like, you got it, bro. Congrats. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, everybody that tuned in. And for those that are just hanging out with us and ended up subscribing or following us on Twitter as a result, we really appreciate you guys as well.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. The best way to support us, if you'd like to, is via our Patreon. So if you just love the show and you want to show your support, please go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon. This will help us keep the lights on here. It's what helps us do new projects. Like we are, we've got new cameras. We're starting to have better editing. We're trying to get new microphones soon. It's all stuff that we're just pouring back into you guys to help make the content better.
Plus, our Patreon has a ton of perks, and we really want you guys to use them. I know some of our friends finally started using their perks that have already been supporting, but we'll help you with your deck list. We'll play them on stream. Frank and I are finally starting to get more time to stream, as both of us have really tight schedules. Work has been a little bit easier for me. And Frank is also not doing any theater stuff right now that I know of. So,
no, I'm not.
So we can definitely play your decks. If you guys want to send us deck lists and you're a sub to the Patreon, or you want us to help you with cyber guides, all that stuff, we want to help you. We want to do coaching. So please subscribe, check it out. We'd love to get you guys on the Discord. And if you want to just join our Discord, it's open access. You can chat with us. We're very active in there. Talk to us about your gameplay, post your limited results. We love when people are like, oh, I got 6-3 or 7-0 on this limited event. Just recently they had the Artifacts remix, such a good format,
so fun,
and good payout. So a lot of our friends were posting all their good Artifact decks in there, and it was just a good time. We all got to chat about our stuff, and then sometimes we'll join each other on Discord call and stream each other our games when we're drafting, or if I'm lucky, Frank will be on at the same time as me, because we have opposite schedules, and I can get Frank to help me draft because he's a lot better than me at limited. So it all kind of works out in the end. But yeah, we do appreciate everybody who's sub to our Patreon. As always, you guys are the best. You guys have helped us since day one. And to those that are just with us for the show, we really do appreciate the view. It does mean the world to us that you guys are enjoying the content. Yeah,
it's been really great. I mean, we're coming up on a full year of having the podcast.
Yeah,
and in a month or two, it'll be a full year for you and I. And
I mean, this is episode 27, which is crazy because it feels like yesterday. We were on 12.
Yeah, right. Well, I think you started with me on episode 7.
Which means
this is our
20th episode together. Yeah.
Which is sweet. And truthfully, these are my favorite episodes to do. Is getting ready for pre-release, exciting for new cards. There's a lot to unpack, and for people to come up to us at pre-releases and be like, oh my gosh, I listened to the episode and I thought about this and this and this, and I only did that because I listened to your episode.
All right.
So if you're just listening, we appreciate that too. And we've really grown not grown crazily, but our numbers for listens are starting to climb. And so
it really feels rewarding.
Yeah, we appreciate the support.
With that being said, this is going to be a lot, so we're going to try to go through it pretty fast. In our small talk, we got to talk about a decent amount of the rares that we like. There's so many that we could talk about for constructed play, especially if we get into the big score. We're probably not going to be able to get into them today. Most likely, maybe at the end of the episode, we'll see if we can get into a couple. But Frank's going to power through the pre-release format for you guys, specifically sealed. Maybe occasional draft talk for some of the cards, just to see if we can power through it for you guys as short of an episode as possible, so that you can listen to it before pre-release. Yeah.
So a couple things to keep in mind if you've never joined us for a pre-release episode before is that specifically for pre-release, we want to mention a few things. We're mainly going to be talking about commons and uncommons because those are going to make up the majority of your decks. There are rares. They are great. Some of them are not, but the majority of cards you're going to be putting in your deck are not rares. They are commons and uncommons. So that's where we're going to spend the majority of our time. And then a lot of the cards that I will mention, I will talk about as cards of these cards are just good in their colors. I usually rank cards based off of will this be good in multiple styles of white decks, blue decks, black decks, whatever? Yes, it is on there. There are some cards that I will give caveats to that oh, this is good, but only in green white or only in red blue spells or whatever the case may be. So just keep that in mind when we start talking about these cards.
Yeah, it's definitely especially important nowadays where the sets we are not exaggerating. The limited formats have been phenomenal, and a lot of that has to do with how attuned the design team has been with these colors do this thing, and these cards specifically want to do an archetype, and they have nailed it. But because of that, a lot of cards are like, I only do the one thing. And so you might see a card that was really good for you in Azorius Tap Out, which is probably one of the worst decks to bring up, but terrible for you in like green white because you were supposed to get counters or whatever. So just keep that in mind. Frank will cover it, but it does matter. You think of these cards when you are putting your decks together.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let's jump in. First, it's going to be talking about the new terms that we are seeing in Magic. So the first one being is Outlaw. Outlaw is new to the game, and it refers to any card with the type Assassin, Mercenary, Pirate, Rogue, or Warlock. An example that we have currently is Vial Smasher.
This is kind of reminiscent of Party, where it was like you got Wizard, Paladin, Cleric, or whatever. So it's kind of cool.
So our example card is Vial Smasher. Vial Smasher, Gleeful. Is it Grenadier?
I believe Grenadier. I think it's like Tomato.
Yeah.
He throws grenades.
Legendary creature, Goblin Mercenary. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, Vial Smasher, Gleeful, Grenadier deals 1 damage to target opponent, and it is a 3/2 for a red and the black. So it just matters that you have outlaws and that you're putting them into play. Yep. Whatever the outlaw payoff is, it's based off of assassins, mercenaries, pioneers, rogues, or warlocks. Which, as a fun fact, if you were wondering, because of another card that I'll mention later, there are 69 different outlaws within the format. So 69 creatures that are outlaws. So
that's actually pretty like high impact.
It's a lot. The other one is Outlaw's Fury. This is an instant spell, 2 and a red. Creatures you control get +2/0 until end of turn. If you control an outlaw, exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. So it's a combat trick that if you control an outlaw, you can then exile the top card and then have an extra card as well. Like, can you remember combat tricks just being like combat tricks, and now they're like combat tricks with draws on them? Like, man, it's getting good. And that's what.
More vanillas.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And just what you had mentioned before, just to go back a second about like you needing to help people get into Magic. It just makes me laugh because like this set specifically, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, it has a couple really cute things in it that are referencing other things in pop culture.
Yeah.
And part of like the universes beyond feels like Magic is trying to get more people into Magic.
Yeah.
However, with these cards having more text and the complexity of like the different interactions you can do, it feels like, yes, these fun cards are like bringing people into Magic, while these more complex cards that are trying to keep us who like are veterans around and happy.
Yeah.
It's like working in opposition. Almost feels like an oxymoron kind of.
Yeah, not to tangent too hard, but I will say this to their testament. I think they're doing a great job of getting new players. As a store owner, like I'm here at the shop like 5 to 6 days a week. I see so many players. So many new players are like, oh, Thunder Junction, I love Cowboys. Oh, Ixalan, I love dinosaurs. Oh, I love noir stuff, New Capenna. I specifically came back, got into Magic because of Fallout, Doctor Who, whatever. And it's all kinds of people. It's like literally the variety is insane. All kinds, like I'm not to get like all political, but it's like every kind of race, both like genders, everybody, like girls coming in to play Magic nonstop, which like back in the day, I mean, you guys know from like 2005, 2010, maybe it was kind of like not as inviting, but like it was pretty rare to see a lot of girls at your shop. And nowadays it'll be like half the room sometimes. So I'm like, what, what's going on? And a lot of that is a testament, I think, to like how inviting they've made the game to everybody. Obviously, us as a community, we've gotten a lot better about just being welcoming to all kinds of people. That was never really an issue for me, which is why I kind of do what I do. But in general, I think even the complexity of the cards, it kind of makes the game feel more rewarding. Like when you do learn it, it's like learning a hard board game. You're like, wow, this game has a lot more substance to it than, oh, we're just throwing cards at each other. And so I think that actually does keep a lot of our new players in the game. At least that's been my experience. So it's kind of anecdotal, but complexity high, yes. Bad for new players, I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like bad for new players. I just think it's more of like the level of entry is a little harder.
Oh, for sure. Which means you got to support your homies. You know, if you want to get people into the game, help them out. Yeah. Or send them to us. We'll help them out for you.
Yeah, we will. Next thing that I want to talk about is the new term crimes. Targeting an opponent, anything they control, and or cards in their graveyard is considered a crime. This mechanic of like committing a crime, I think, is going to change the way that Constructed is. Because here's my thought. A lot of these things, targeting an opponent with like a Thoughtseize, or like removing their creature, or targeting something in their graveyard, was already something like game plans that decks were doing. So now they can get payoffs for things they were already doing because of committing crimes. Oh my gosh, I think it's really going to be like, wow, we're seeing some higher synergies within Standard because these decks were already doing those things, and now they have payoffs for doing what they were already doing.
I'm going to try to stop interrupting you every segment, I swear, but it's true so hard. So one of my customers yesterday was like playing Commander, and before he left, he's like, hey man, you got that Mind Over Matter in there. I've been eyeing it for a couple weeks. I just realized that it commits a crime. I'm like, oh man, that's true. So it's like Mind Over Matter, like $50 card from the olden days, used to just be a combo piece. Now it's like, oh, tap your thing, I committed a crime. Okay. And it's on the reserve list, so you know it could spike up. You know, shout outs to people that want to, you know, eye on the reserve list for any cards that commit crimes. But yeah, there's so many cards, like you said, that just interact in ways that are like, wait, that's a crime. This is a crime. This is a crime. If the payoffs are high enough, oh my god.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I did have, for this specific session, specific notes for committing crimes. So those being, this includes activated abilities that target other opponents' things. So if your creature has a ability that targets something of an opponent's, that's considered committing a crime. This also counts when you cast spells. The spell doesn't need to resolve. So if you target and then it gets countered, it still counts as committing a crime.
So just pointing.
Yeah, the targeting already happened.
So it's indicate.
Yeah. A targeted ability and a trigger from causing the crime both go on the stack. So if you target, with a card and then a crime is committed, that trigger happens. They both go on the stack, and you may choose what order you want to resolve.
Ooh, okay, nice.
Yeah. So that was my notes for just specifically like constructed limited play.
That matters for instance that they worded it that way, so that's pretty cool. Because if you do it on their turn, now it's like I still control it.
Yeah. Next part being, this is specifically for Commander. A player can commit one crime per spell or ability. So if you are targeting multiple permanents of multiple players, you are only committing one crime. It does not count as you committing multiple crimes to multiple people.
So it's one or more. Yeah, that's cool.
It's one or more. So like you do a spell that targets 3 different creatures for 3 different opponents, one crime. Doesn't count for a crime for all 3.
I guess that matters for 1v1s in the fact that like if you target multiple of their creatures, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be one at the end of the day. That's cool.
Then the last thing is if someone has a spell that redirects, if targets are changed, the crime is still committed towards the initial player. Ooh. So if you targeted, if I targeted Stan with a creature and someone else redirects it somewhere else, the crime is still committed to Stan and not anyone else.
That matters. We have the wild ricochet in the format.
Yeah. So the examples of committing crimes, this card is crazy. I will talk about it in the like limited
black section
portion. Raven of Fell Omens. This is 1 and a black creature bird. Whenever you commit a crime, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This ability triggers only once each turn, and it is a flying 1/2 for 2.
That's really good. Wow,
it's so good.
Every time you kill one of their guys, or at least tried to.
Yeah, drain 1, gain 1. Seize the Secrets is the other card that we had. So Seize the Secrets is 2 and a blue sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast. If you've committed a crime this turn, draw 2 cards.
Ooh.
So if you target something, like in the red-blue spell slinging deck, you target something, cool. Now I've got a 2 mana draw 2.
Yeah. I mean, Divination was already dead with Quick Study, but now it's really dead.
Super mega dead. Poor Divination. Rest in peace.
Power creep, man. What's going on?
The next new, now we're on to new abilities. Our first new ability is Plot. You can pay a card's plot cost, exile that card, and then cast it on a later turn without paying its mana cost. You plot as a sorcery. So you can't like cast in a creature at instant speed on your opponent's turn because you plotted it. Its plot is at the sorcery, done at sorcery speed.
I think the ability as well to like put it down is also sorcery.
Yes, to put it down into plot.
To plot it, sorcery, and then to cast it later, it's also sorcery.
Yes.
If it wasn't this way, by the way, this ability would be so broken.
Yeah,
it is already
they'd have
very
to hot
strong.
Fix it.
Yeah. This would be companion 2.
Yes. Special notes. For plot, you cannot cast the plotted card the same turn it has been plotted.
Right.
So if you do plot a card on this turn and then you've got a ton of mana and want to get some payoffs, casting it for free, can't do it. You have to cast a plotted card not on the same turn that you plotted.
Right. Most of the time you're going to want to do it that way anyway by the design. There's just a couple that are like, yeah, if it didn't work that way, it would be too good.
Yeah. If you plot a card that has like additional costs like kicker or spree or whatever, you can still pay the additional costs. So you can plot it, make it a spell for free. Oh, it has additional costs. You can still pay them. If a plotted card has X in its cost, you may choose to pay 0. You can still pay X. You could still pay for it.
Oh, you can, when you go to pay for a plot card, you can still pay X into it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful actually, because normally with alternate costs, they don't let you do that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You can play alternate costs for plotted cards. And our example is Rictus Robber. This is 3 and a black. Zombie Rogue. When Rictus Robber enters the battlefield, if a creature died this turn, create a 2/2 blue and black Zombie Rogue creature token. It has a plot of 2 and a black, and it is a 4/3.
This kind of card is really sweet, actually, because if you're playing like Rakdos, I'm assuming Rakdos is like the best color for Outlaws. If you have that earlier card you mentioned, he's a commander, Vial Smasher. If you have Vial Smasher and you trigger that, you're like 2 triggers. It's like, yeah, these are cool cards.
Yeah, they're really cool. There's a lot of synergy. I think this set is going to be really scary. I think it's going to be very similar to Aftermath, where there is going to be a lot of like, we have dual lands again in a limited format. So you can have like blue-red lands, blue-white lands, like they're tap lands. But
what do you mean Aftermath?
I'm sorry, March of the Machine.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
March of the Machine. My bad.
You're good.
Yeah, March of the Machine, where you were able to play 3 color decks, 5 color decks, and there was synergies across multiple archetypes.
Right.
I'm feeling that this is going to be similar to that, and so I think it's going to create very interesting, fun gameplay. The next ability is Saddle. Saddle is basically crew, but it is for creatures, and then when you do Saddle, you get bonus abilities. I was gonna say Saddle Up before we get into these abilities, and I forgot to because there's so much to get into. But just know that I was gonna make that joke.
Saddle is pretty cool, honestly, though. Just in general, I love the name of the ability. I can't wait to say that every time I do it. All
right, saddle up, partner. I'm gonna sit down to pre-release and be like, saddle up for this game. Man, I'm such a weeb. So the card we have as an example is the Rambling Possum. I picked this one because I know that my wife would be like, man, that thing is so cute, and I'm gonna have to grab one of the cards. And if there are cards that are like cute or on theme for something she likes, I give her one and she uses them as like bookmarks on all the books that she reads.
Nice.
She trades, like she changes what bookmark it'll be. That's the 3rd time I fit the mic, if you were wondering. I'm counting. You don't have to, but I am. Rambling Possum. It is 2 and a green creature, possum with mount. Whenever Rambling Possum attacks while saddled, it gets +1/+2 until end of turn. Then you may return any number of creatures that's saddled at this turn to their owner's hands.
Oh my
and it's saddle for
goodness.
1, and it's a 3/3 for 3.
That's so gross.
So if it's got ETB effects, bam, you're able to get them because the possum's putting them back into hand.
Band is like the colors for that. So the fact that it's a green creature and it's so thick, that's crazy.
Yeah, this is gonna get wild.
I mean, even just like Draven Inspector. You know what I mean? Like bounce this guy, cruise it for 1.
Sweet. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and we will get there when we start getting to some of these cards. Spree with spells with Spree have a base cost as well as multiple additional costs, each of which is associated with a special effect. So special notes for Spree, we kind of talked about some of those effects already with some of the rares, but spells with Spree have a plus sign indicator in the upper right corner of the card frame. This has no rules, meaning, and serves only to remind players that at least one of the additional costs is required to cast the spell. So you can't cast the spell without casting an additional cost.
Yeah, it's like for you old school players that remember when Flashback first came out and they put little like headstones at the top of the card. So you, in the graveyard, you knew it had Flashback.
Yeah. You must choose at least one additional mode. Once modes are chosen, you cannot change them. Like you've chosen these two modes.
Yep.
Sorry, no matter what other interaction happens, you can't choose another one. Mana value is only indicated though by the top right corner. So if cards matter for saying counter a 1-drop,
that means Disdainful Stroke loses hard.
It does. These cards do count as 1-drops. Or whatever the spell's cost is at the top right is the cost of the spell, the additional spell.
I didn't see any that were 4 or greater.
Yeah. Yep. No player can cast spells in between modes of the resolving additional abilities. So any abilities that trigger won't be on the stack until the ability resolves. So if you say, hey, I've cast it for these 3, and then you say it resolves, all 3 have to happen. You cannot interact in between multiples.
Yep. And basically it just ends up being 1 spell at that point.
Yeah. If all targets for the chosen modes become illegal before a spell with Spree resolves, the spell won't resolve and none of its effects will happen. If at least one target is still legal, the spell will resolve, but no effect on any illegal targets. So if you choose one of them that targets a creature and that one, and you choose 2 other effects, if the creature gets removed by someone else, the other 2 legal effects will still resolve. The one that targeted the creature won't.
Since you're bringing up Final Showdown as the spoiler card to explain the mechanic, I will say that specific ruling matters so much for what we just talked about earlier, where we were sad that it can't target because of Feather. But, Feather be damned, if you kill my creature that I target, and then I don't get to field nuke you, I lost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So if you remove the creature that gets indestructible, sorry, the board wipe still happens. Is basically how it would be explained.
No, it wouldn't.
No, it does.
It does?
Yeah. If all targets of the chosen modes become illegal, it doesn't resolve. If at least one target is still legal, the spell will resolve, but
if
have no
Final
effect.
Showdown said target and you killed the creature in response, no field nuke. Because it would be the only target and it'd be gone.
No. If one of them becomes illegal, the legal ones still happen.
You're not understanding. Read the thing again one more time.
This card?
No. The rule. I got you.
If all targets for the chosen modes become illegal.
If all targets.
Yeah. Before.
What are the targets on Final Showdown? If that one mode was target.
Oh, you're saying if it was target.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. If it was target.
If it was target and they killed the creature, no field nuke.
Right.
So that's probably why it doesn't target.
But it's not targeting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, if you cast multiple modes and one of the modes becomes illegal, the other modes will still resolve.
Right. No, I'm not arguing with that. I'm just, it's like Cryptic Command. So Cryptic Command has counter draw, but it doesn't say target player draws a card. So when I remand my spell that you're targeting, you don't get to draw a card anymore. So that's why that makes way more sense now. because Final Showdown is your example card.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, can't target feather. Got it. Shouldn't target feather because you'll just botch your own field nuke.
Yeah. The only other important things to know, like about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, is that we do have deserts as a returning
deserts
like
are back.
theme,
And they commit crimes.
Yes, and we have fast lands, which are also back.
Kaladesh Fastlands. All the Boros players rejoice for the RC.
With that being said, we're now going to get into archetypes. So different archetypes that we have for the limited set. Red and white is go wide with mercenary tokens. There's black red that has outlaw synergies.
Right.
Red green, which is big guys synergies.
+4 power. Interesting.
Yep. Blue and red cast 2 or more spells with plot synergies. Blue and black is committing crimes. So targeting your opponent's stuff. White and blue having no spells to cast through plot, which it's not really that.
Yeah, right.
And those cards are so broken, by the way, because because a lot of them, as we'll get to, say if you didn't cast a card from your hand this turn, my creature gets to do this.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter if you're plotting because you could just not cast anything,
right,
and you still get the ability. It's like, that's crazy. Oh, I top deck some lands, and my creatures are still doing stuff.
If I had a nickel for every time they botched the white blue archetype.
Green and blue is plot synergies. Spoiler, it's not. Mount synergies with tokens is green white. Black and green is graveyard synergies, and then white black is aristocrat sacrifice.
What? Really? I will say that it's interesting that Gruul is specifically power 4 or greater, because that's like ferocious. So that's kind of gross, because if any of these cards are nasty, stubborn denial interactions, stuff like that might be like really might be pretty scary.
Yeah.
For constructed, obviously.
Yeah, for constructed specifically, sure. But I will. Don't worry. There's a lot. There's a lot of feelings that we have about some of these archetypes, and we'll get into them actually right now. Here we go with top commons and uncommons. We're gonna start first with white. So the first card is Holy Cow. I love this card so much just off of its flavor. So this is a 2 and a white Ox Angel with Flash Flying. When Holy Cow enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and scry 1. It's a 2/2 with Flying, Flash, gain 2 life, scry 1 for 3.
Yeah.
And I have to read the flavor text. I'm so sorry. After it passed by, the rancher swore she saw hope shining in the pig's eyes because of this flying cow.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
That's awesome.
There's not much to say. It's a flyer. It has flash, and it has like relevant text. It's not as good as what was the card from New Capenna? The angel that, like, when it ETB'd, you gain a life and draw a card. But
right.
It was a 2/1.
Yeah, no, that one was gross.
That card was like,
still though, like,
it was in the top 10 cards in the set as a common. This one is still the same amount of mana. It gains you 2 life, which that did, but it's got flash, and you do get to scry.
Right.
So it's like not drawing a card, but pretty close. I think every deck that plays white is going to want this card.
Right.
The next one is Brittled Bighorn. This is 3 and a white, Vigilance. When Brittled Bighorn attacks while saddled, create a 1/1 white sheep creature token, saddle for 2, and it's a 3/4. Just 3/4 Vigilance, good. The fact that a 3/4 with Vigilance can then just make bodies over and over and over and over again when attacking, that seems really awesome. Like, that just seems powerful.
Well, I also didn't think about it, but a saddle just makes it so that your guys have high impact immediately. We're like, oh, this guy doesn't have haste. Well, it doesn't matter. Saddle. Like, that's going to be gross. If you're ever like the aggressor, he doesn't care. I don't care about blocking. Tap all my guys for the saddles.
Yeah. I mean, this card specifically says when it attacks, so it won't like get the thing immediately because it has to attack.
No, I mean, like, if I summon that cow on this turn, I can't get in for 2 with the cow. But I'm making a guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
Well, and for later turns, it's good too, because if you're ahead, you can go, oh, I'm going to play this cow, and just on my main phase, and I'm gonna tap it to saddle this
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
and be like, oh, like your creatures having the ability to tap immediately,
Right.
like when they enter, is gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, and if that guy makes 2 tokens, all of a sudden he's just doing it by himself.
Yeah. The next one, this is probably the weaker effect of these effects. Like if you think of in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, All Attack Cloud Guard, this is similar to All Attack Cloud Guard. It's Wanted Griffin. 3 and a white, Griffin, flying. When Wanted Griffin dies, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap target creature you control, gets +1/0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So it's a 3/2 with flying. When it dies, it makes a 1/1 that can tap and give +1/0. I think this mechanic would be really good and give crazy combats if the 1/1 creature ended up being able to tap and pump something else on opponents' combats or even in your own combats. But
yeah, the fact that it's only a sorcery makes me feel like this guy is designed to help people saddle.
Yes. But still, just the ability of like a lot of these effects in the past just make 1/1s, and that's good.
Right.
But this is a 1/1 token with abilities.
Yeah.
So it's like your 1/1 has a little bit more value than it normally does.
Yeah.
And that's part of like the red white synergy, is making a ton of those that can then like +1/0 something. And especially even for like this card, if you had 3 of those out already and you're like, oh, I'm on the front foot, I'm going to tap all of them and now make this flyer a 6/2.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, because you can have so many guys with evasion, it just pumping your evasion guys is going to be so nasty.
Yeah. And the last comment I have is Incentive Wingsmith. This card I think is just really sweet, and will be wanted in multiple white decks. It does make you take a turn off if you want to do the thing, but it is 2 and a white, Dwarf Artificer. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, and Inventive Wingsmith doesn't have a flying counter on it, put a flying counter on it. So
that's so gross.
It's a 2/4 for 3 that if you haven't cast a spell this turn, now it's a 2/4 flyer.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're plotting on a different turn, you still make it a flyer. Or if you're like, I just don't have anything to do, I'm hellbent.
Right.
Look, it flies now.
Yeah. That is so cool.
Yeah. I think that you haven't cast a spell from your turn this turn was meant to be for plot.
Yeah.
But people are just going to get the effect for being hellbent. And I think that that's really broken.
Yeah, I guess it does help the non-plotters too, though, that they get to be like, well, I'll still get this guy if he ends up being too good in my white deck that's not like plot specific.
Yeah. Next spell I have is in the uncommon slot. We're now moving on to white uncommons. It's Getaway Glamour. 1 and it's 1 white. This is an instant spree card. You can pay an additional, exile target non-token creature, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So it's a flicker effect for 2, or you can pay an additional 2, distort target creature if no other creature has greater power. So you have the ability to flicker your own guy and then destroy the greatest power of like something your opponents control.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a nice way to do it, where like if you just happen to have the biggest guy, you can at least for one turn not have the biggest guy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just 3 mana removal.
Right.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
At instant speed.
Yeah. Or you can save your own creatures. If they have ETB effects, it gets even better. It's
that's like, gonna for sure matter.
You can just use this in a lot of ways, and it's really sweet.
Yeah. Also, I like that it's like non-conditional removal. I mean, obviously it has a condition, but a lot of these 3 mana, 2 mana white removal spells in draft will be like exile this tapped guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
This one's just like get rid of him.
Yeah, just get rid of the biggest guy.
Mm-hmm. Who you're gonna target anyway, right? So,
right.
Yeah. Very cool.
The next one is Frontier Seeker. This is 1 and a white. When Frontier Seeker enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a mount creature card or a plains card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, right, if green-white is looking to do mount, which it is, you can either grab a land, which grabbing a land in the early game, like to make sure that you're carving out, is amazing on this 2/1. Or in the late game, you're like, oh, I can just grab a body off of this if you don't want the land. And I think that that is so good because it makes this card that usually like just grabs a plains useful in the late game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's useful in the late game already for you to be like, oh, I can thin my deck out a little bit. Like that has some value. But you being like, oh, I can grab a body now too.
It also says plains card, not basic. So like for constructed synergy, the fact that it can grab tap lands from murder is pretty cool.
That's gross. Well, or right, if you're playing in Pioneer, you just grab a shock land.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it kind of reminds me of Knight of the White Orchid.
Yeah. This is one of the next card I think is one of the more egregious cards that they made. And surprise, it's a squirrel for all you commander players that have nightmares. It's Prairie Dog. Which why is that a squirrel? I don't think prairie dogs.
That is a big squirrel.
I don't think prairie dogs are actually squirrels, but whatever, wizards. 1 and a white creature, 2/2 with lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, put a 1/1 counter on Prairie Dog.
What is this guy?
I know. It's just so later in the game, you're not casting spells, and you're like, oh, my lifelinker gets bigger. My lifelinker gets bigger.
But why does it have that extra ability?
Right. And then it has an additional ability. 4 and a white until end of turn. If you would put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, put that many plus 1/1 counters on it instead.
Wow.
So you can give it to itself and other things that have counters on it too.
Yeah. That's gross. I thought that angel was broken, the 5-land angel. This guy is crazy and uncommon.
Oop, the next card I actually didn't put a link for, so I'm going to say sorry to Todd, but it's Sheriff of the Safe Passage. 3 and a white. Sheriff of the Safe Passage enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it, plus an additional 1/1 counter on it for each other creature you control.
Nice.
And it has plot for 2.
It is a 0/0, so you have to you use it with creatures, but still.
Well, it gives itself a 1/1 automatically.
Right. But for 3 mana, it's like you better have guys.
Right. So you could be like, oh, I built a board. Now I'm casting this dude for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. That's really scary.
Yeah.
And because I'm a really nice person, I will take a brief pause to make this for Todd. Done. Okay, next one is Shepherd of the Clouds. I think I noted that this card specifically will be for green-white. I think this card's nuts. Shepherd of the Clouds. 4 and a white. Flying Vigilance. It's a 4/3. When Shepherd of the Clouds enters the battlefield, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Return that card to the battlefield instead if you control a mount. So if you have another creature that has mount on the battlefield, you can bring something from your graveyard to the battlefield and get a Flying Vigilant 4/3 for 5.
Yeah, and even if it just gets a card back, that's still already really good.
Right. A flying 4/3 that gets a card back to your hand, awesome. One that can potentially have the upside of getting it to the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? And that was an honorable mention. There's so many cards in this set that I have like a lot of honorable mentions because there's so many good cards. This is Bounding Felidar. It's 5 and a white, very high cost. But whenever Bounding Felidar attacks while saddled, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. You gain 1 life for each of those creatures. Saddle for 2, it's a 4/7. If you've got a big board and you saddled this thing, you're giving counters to the whole board. And then you're also gaining life for each creature you have. Like,
there's a lot of counter synergies actually for that dog. I was surprised.
Yeah,
or I guess squirrel.
That's it for white. Moving on to blue, we're moving. Disclaimer: I'm feeling like blue is going to look underwhelming.
Okay.
Overall, some of these cards are good. These are like the highlights.
Sure.
But I do think that like off the top, if you're wondering, and I'll get into power rankings later, I think blue is a little weaker. Phantom Interference. This is 1 blue mana. Spree. You can pay an additional 3 and create a 2/2 white spirit token with flying. And then you can pay additional 1, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. I think that this card's awesome. The reason being is that there are some decks where like, I just don't want a counter spell because it's bad. Well, this...
At least it makes a guy.
But this is pay 3 mana and I can counter something unless they pay 2. Or I can if I've got a ton of mana, I can counter unless they pay 2 and make a body. I think that that's just a fine card.
Yeah. The only problem is the accuracy is like the fact that like by the time you can do both modes, they're probably not going to have the problem of having to pay the extra 2.
Yeah.
Especially if they're plotting.
Right.
That's the only reason why I'm like kind of mid on it. I think all these counter unless you pay X cards are going to really suck in a plot format.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't necessarily think about it with plot. So I think that piece is bad. But at a minimum, right?
At least it makes a guy.
Yeah, and when
it flies.
And when they're plotting, at least in the early stages of the game where they're trying to get tempo, they're trying to double spell. Like the point of plotting is a double spell, and you can at least stop them from doing both.
That's true.
Next is Harrier Strix. Harrier Strix, 1 mana, flying. When Harrier Strix enters the battlefield, tap target permanent. You can then draw a card and discard a card by paying 3. I don't think the tapping thing particularly matters. It's a 1 mana 1/1 that I think you'll put down on 1.
Makes it a better late game draw.
Right, but it having the ability to draw and discard a card, I think is hot because you're like, oh, I'm getting flooded. I've got this ability on my bird to like start looting. Like, I think that's just
crazy. This bird is going to be super high impact.
Yeah, I think the bird's just crazy. Next, this card I think is really underrated, or will be underrated, and people are going to be like, "Oh, that card's mid," until they start playing with it or playing against it, and they're like, "Wow, this card is beating the crap out of me." Slickshot Vault Buster. This is 3 in a blue, human rogue, 2 in a blue. Sorry, 3 mana, 2 in a blue. Vigilance, 1/4. Slickshot Vault Buster gets +2/0 as long as you've committed a crime this turn.
Ooh.
I'm thinking of a blue-black deck that wants this as a body because it's a 1/4, so it's very thick.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to do any amount of targeting. Now it's a 3/4 with Vigilance. Attack in, you don't want to block it because it's pretty big and it's pretty hard to like trade with because it's got a 4-bot.
Well, could you imagine the combat tricks too, where it's like combat trick on your guy, my guy is now the best blocker.
Right. It's like I will kill this other thing. Now I have a 3/4 block something else. I'm gonna
this card
super
is
swing combat.
Terrific for a common. Wow.
Yeah. My honorable mentions for the commons of blue.
I thought that said the Rizzler.
The Rizzler Dizzler. No, the Razzle Dazzler. 1 in a blue. Human Wizard. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a 1/1 counter on Razzle Dazzler.
Nice.
It can't be blocked.
Ooh.
This will be wanted in both blue-white and blue-red, because blue-red is going to be spell slinging, so you will be playing multiple spells. But Razzle Dazzler also cares about, oh, I've plotted this card. I will play it. I will also play this other creature because it counts as casting 2 cards.
Yeah.
Now it's got a counter and can't be blocked.
Yeah, the unblockable. That's crazy.
Yeah. This
can actually kind of work with that dog too. It's getting the 1/1 counters.
Yes. So I think that card also is like very good, will be desired in 2 decks. And this last one I actually saw last minute. I think it's kind of awesome as a combat trick. It's called Take the Fall, 1 blue, instant. Target creature gets +1/0 until end of turn. It gains -4/0 until end of turn. Instead, if you control an outlaw, draw a card.
Nice.
So it's let me manipulate combat, either like shrinking the power of a dude or super shrinking the power of a dude.
Well, is that other Vigilance guy we were talking about an outlaw? Because this is literally his card.
I think the other card is an outlaw. In fact, the Vault
Buster. It has to be, right?
Buster is a rogue. So yes.
Yeah. That is so gross.
Yeah. So just the fact that it's a shrink and draw card, I think is very, very good. Usually when we've seen that before, it's like, this card is busted.
Well, yeah, because like if you combo it with that guy you liked, the 1/4, that's 8 toughness they have to get through for like their biggest guy. You know what I mean? Right. So like you can really just turn them off for a turn and then try to find the answer.
Yeah. So super, super good. Next, we're moving on to uncommons. This first one is called Emergent Haunting. This card, like if you first look at it, kind of looks clunky. However, it's 1 in a blue. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, and Emergent Haunting isn't a creature, it becomes a 3/3 spirit creature with flying in addition to its other types. This thing becomes a 3/3 permanently.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
It doesn't say until end of turn.
Yeah.
It is a permanent 3/3 with flying.
That's why it can't have already become a creature.
Yeah. So, and then you can pay 3 and surveil 1 at any time. So it's a 2 mana, will become a 3/3 flying with, now I can surveil at any moment with 3 mana. So it's a mana sink. It's a good body off of a good rate. You just have to wait a turn and eventually, right, you're going to run out of cards.
Right.
Or you just want a blocker. So you're like, I'll just not cast anything this turn. You have other things that care about you not casting cards this turn. This card's gross.
Yeah.
Next one is Marauding Sphinx. And oh my gosh, I thought you'd be so excited for this card. I'm super excited for this card. What it makes me think of, like, there will be a control deck in Limited, and it's going to be centered around this baddie. Marauding Sphinx is 3 blue. Sphinx Rogue, so it is an outlaw, which matters. Flying, Vigilance, Ward 2. It's a 3/5. Whenever you commit a crime, surveil 2.
Oh, wow.
So look, I'm playing...
Only once per turn, but still.
Yeah, only once per turn. But you're playing blue-black control. You've got this Flying Vigilance that is harder to kill because they have to pay an additional 2 mana. And then whenever you are destroying other creatures, you get to start surveilling.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a control variant around this card.
For sure. I mean, even with that other guy, the 1/4, you got the 1/4, you got this guy, you've got -4 on the 1-drop spell. These cards are all best friends for sure. And then not including your black removal. Now we're talking.
We're cooking. Next card I had on this was Plan the Heist. I think that this card is also sweet. I also just laughed at Plan the Heist. There are so many cards. For all you people out there that are like simping for Oko, this set's for you, because they put Oko on so many cards that he doesn't need to be on.
He deserves it, man, because they all ditched him or whatever in the lore, if I'm not mistaken. Like, Jace convinced them to go on the hunt for the treasure or whatever, and then they get busted and they all ditch Oko and he has to take the rap.
Yeah, they put that in the lore just because they're like, Oko's one of our hot planeswalkers, so let's just put him shirtless on everything.
Yeah. He does look cool, man. I love his outfit.
He looks good. He does look good, and the face paint thing is really sweet. But it just made me, I going through all the spoilers, I was like, oh, and Oko's on this card, and this card, and this card. Plan the Heist, sorcery, 2 and 2 blue. Surveil 3 if you have no cards in your hand. Then draw 3 cards.
Whoa.
And you can plot it for 4.
That's nasty.
Or for 3 and a blue. Sorry. Instead of doing double blue for 3.
Oh, so you can splash it too.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
You can splash it. So, surveil 3 if you have no cards in hand. Then draw 3 cards.
4 mana draw 3 is pretty nice. I mean, that's basically harmonized with upside.
Harmonized with upside. Welcome to Magic, everyone. Next is Shifting Grift. This was in my honorable mentions, and I was actually wondering, and I'll get your thoughts on it later. Hopefully, I will have, if Stan is siding with me, I'll buy a bunch of these just to like hold on to them for Magic stocks for Commander. Shifting Grift. It's a sorcery spree card. It's double blue. Spree, exchange control of 2 target creatures. So 2, add an additional 2, exchange control of 2 target creatures. 1, exchange an additional 1, exchange control of 2 target artifacts. An additional 1, exchange control of 2 target enchantments. So it's basically like your stuff is now my stuff.
Yeah.
For a lot. Will this be good and limited? Maybe not. I think it will be good enough just because you could be like, oh, you've got this really big scary dragon.
Yeah.
It's mine now. That's a big swing. Permanently. It's mine now. But I think for Commander, this is going to be like every blue deck is going to play this. Is it not?
I think you're right. This might actually get played limited because if you think about it, like you're saying, like you can make like a blue X control deck. You have that one card where it's like just draw 3 cards, which is exactly what you need for like this kind of archetype to work. And late game, if you draw a card that's just like awful, well, it doesn't now. Now it doesn't matter. Like get rid of it. I'll take your whatever.
I'll take your big dragon, your 7/7.
And that's probably really good against the plot guys that come in late game because you're like, cool, you summon this plot guy and put a lot of effort into it and invested all your mana into making your prairie dog like a 6/6 with lifelink. Thanks. You know, so like that's kind of cool.
Yeah. The next card is it got cut off, so now I need to find it. It is the Canyon Crab, and I can tell you with certainty, I looked at this card so many times. It is 1 and a blue. It's an 0/5. You can pay 2 mana to give the Canyon Crab +2/-2 until end of turn. And at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, draw a card, and discard a card. At first, I looked at this guy and didn't pay any attention. I was like, he kind of sucks. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. He is a really big body.
Yeah.
So he can block really early.
Yeah.
In the late game, you can pay mana off of remember those weirds? Like the old standard cards where they were like half red, half blue. And
like Blister Coil weird and stuff like that.
Yeah. This is kind of like that, where it's like, oh, you don't have anything. I can make this guy a useful attacker.
This is also the kind of guy you don't mind giving away.
Right. And then at your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand, draw then discard.
Yeah.
It's then a looter on top of it. This card does so many things. I don't think you want this in an aggro list, but I do think that you will play this in any mid-range or control shot.
Feels like exactly. There's a lot of slower decks in this format that can actually have legs.
Yeah. That's it for blue. Moving on to black. Speaking of control, Raven of the Fell Omens. We talked about this earlier. 1 and a black. Bless you. Creature bird.
Thank you.
Flying. Whenever you commit a crime, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I think that this card is nuts. I think that you will play this in a red-black, I've got an Outlaws list and I can interact with your stuff. Or you'll want this in blue-black where you're like, I'm playing a control list. It's a flyer early. It's not a terrible blocker, but every time I target something, we're going to drain gain.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, all those drain gains add up. If you even just have 2 of those guys and you're playing the Aristocrats deck, okay, you're low enough. Stack my board.
Yeah, this only triggers once per turn, but it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. Just trust. Next one is the Nezumi Link Breaker. This is a 1 black Rat Warlock 1/1. When Nezumi Link Breaker dies, create a 1/1 red mercenary token with target creature you control gains +1/0 until end of turn. That activates only as a sorcery. It's just a 1/1 that when it dies, it makes another 1/1.
Yeah.
The Aristocrats deck is going to think this is awesome.
Right.
It is a it is an outlaw, so it does count for those synergies. 1/1 with it makes a body when it dies is great.
I think that plus power thing really is the deal breaker. Now that I'm reading them, it's these red mercenaries are going to be what keep the aggro decks from losing to all these super slow grindy decks. You're going to pump your Raven or whatever, and it's going to get him for 2 in the air.
Right. And then on top of that, imagine in other formats where it's it dies and it makes a rat that can't block. That was still good.
Yeah.
These guys can block.
Right.
You can use them as sack fodder. You can use them as pumping flyers. These are just good. They will be good bodies.
Yeah, that's true. The fact that they can block, that's a good point. They are going to be high impact.
Next is Vault Plunder. This is 2 and a black. When Vault Plunderer is the name, sorry, enters the battlefield, target player draws a card and loses 1 life. Just a
nice
3 mana 3/1.
Draw a card.
ETB, lose life, draw a card.
That's especially good for the Aristocrats. Just replace itself right away.
Oh yeah. My honorable mentions are, the first one is Overzealous Muscle. I think people are going to sleep on this card a lot. It's a 4 and a black Ogre Mercenary. So again, it's an outlaw. Whenever you commit a crime during your turn, Overzealous Muscle gains indestructible until end of turn. It's a 5/4. So I think that there are going to be turns where you're like, I'm playing red-black and it's on an aggro list, and you target a kill spell towards someone else's stuff. Look, now my 5/4 is indestructible. That is one of the biggest bodies in the format. There are some that are bigger, but this thing is going to be I can't swing into it, and now I can't block it either.
Yeah.
Because it's indestructible.
Even in a Dimir deck where you have that -4 card, you're I got him.
Yeah, it's only on your turn that it becomes indestructible, but it's still it's gonna.
Now their blocks they have to forever think about how they're gonna block this guy, and it's just get rid of all their chump blockers.
Right, and that indestructible piece doesn't come at sorcery speed.
Right.
So you can make him indestructible in combat.
So good.
Yeah.
It is a 5-drop though, so that's kind of rough. But we were talking about a lot of these late game decks. Maybe the Dimir control deck, that's his finisher.
Yeah, it's I think people are going to sleep on that card. I think that it's going to get out. Like it's slow, but once it hits the field, it's like this thing is so hard to deal with.
Right.
The next one that's an honorable mention is a combat trick. I thought this was really cool. It's 1 black. It's called Skullduggery. Instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1, and target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1.
Gross.
So you could like, again, if you're playing like you could like trade a creature you don't care about, and then also like win a combat with a creature you do care about.
This is what's going to combo with the 1/4 and just destroy people.
Yeah, it will blow people out, like for sure.
I mean, the fact that it even because it kills these rebels too, or whatever. Not the rebels, the mercenaries. It's like just get rid of it.
Yeah,
get rid of it. Super terrific block over here. I win.
Oh, that's so true. You could plus your creature to win a combat and then shoot their 1/1 as well.
That's going to be so nasty.
That's gross. I feel so smart when the cards that I talk about are like gross. I'm like, oh yeah, I said that.
Exactly. Write that down.
The last one is Mourner's Surprise. This variant has always been really good. It's 1 and a black sorcery. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Create a 1/1 red mercenary token with target creature you control. Gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate as a sorcery. So again, your sack deck is sacking a creature. You're then returning it back to your hand and then making another 1/1 that's sack fodder. Both the aristocrat decks want this.
Yeah.
It's great for you later if you're not playing aristocrats and you just want to grab your big baddie that they killed and then you make a body as well for 2. It's just gonna be sweet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the more of these cards that are like super high impact, the more you're like, yeah, I want to get that guy back.
Yeah. Moving into black uncommons, Rattleback Apothecary. It is 2 and a black Gorgon Warlock with Death Touch. It's a 3/2. Whenever you commit a crime, target creature you control gains your choice of menace or lifelink until end of turn.
Okay, that's nice.
3/2 commits crimes. You're making
menace or lifelink. Wow,
or lifelink.
That's gross.
Yeah, and it's got Death Touch itself.
Is it only once per turn or whenever?
Nope.
Oh wow, and whenever. Nice. That's really gross. That's gonna be so nasty too with the +1/-1. Oh my god.
There's too much happening. It's really. It still counts as 1 crime, but you're still like.
Yeah, exactly. It's like lifelink +1 on my guy. You lost.
Yeah.
Like it's over.
The tempo swings are going to be really big. Next is Unscrupulous Contractor. This is 3 and a black human assassin. When Unscrupulous Contractor enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life.
Nice.
It's a 3/2. It also has plot for 1 and a black. So you can plot
That's
this,
nice actually that it has plot.
bring it in later, sack a dude, get 2 cards and lose 2 life.
Right.
I mean,
you set it up for a later turn, but the drawing cards is going to be so nice when you start to go off.
Yeah, it's good.
I really want to play this Orzhov deck now.
I think I haven't said this yet. I talked about blue being like mid. I think white is going to be good.
Yeah.
Black, I think, is incredible.
Yeah.
Like every card we've been naming are bangers, and it just keeps going.
Right.
Next one. Speaking of bangers, Servant of the Stinger. 1 and a black. This dude's got this awesome, sweet, big old green
claw. And some scorpions to boot.
The claw. Human warlock. Death touch 1/3. Whenever Servant of the Stinger deals combat damage to a player, if you've committed a crime this turn, you may sacrifice Servant of the Stinger. If you do, search your library for a card, put it into your hand. Shuffle.
Oh, what the heck?
This is Demonic Tutor on a creature.
With Death Touch.
With Death Touch. If you've committed a crime this turn. And then you bring it back with that 2.
Whenever he deals combat damage to a player. Oh my god.
Yeah, if you committed a crime, you may sack him. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to bring him back and then make a 1/1. I'm just going to be tutoring my whole deck, brother.
Yeah, what the heck? That's so gross.
This card is disgusting. This card is so messed up. I even put like WTF under the card's name in our notes.
Yeah.
That card's stupid. The next one, Blood Hustler. 1 and a black. Vampire Rogue. Whenever you commit a crime, put a 1/1 counter on Blood Hustler. This ability triggers once each turn. Then you can pay 3 and a black. Target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life.
Love that.
So it's whenever you commit a crime, it gets a counter, and then you can commit a crime with itself.
Yeah.
on the game one, drain one.
Yeah, and it's game one, drain one oh man, I want to play this Orzhov deck so bad now.
Here it comes. Next we have Forsaken Miner, 1 black, Skeleton Rogue. It can't block. It's a 1 mana 2/2. Whenever you commit a crime, you may pay black. If you do, return Forsaken Miner from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Nice.
Hello, aristocrats.
Again. Yeah, exactly. Bloodgas, is that you?
Well, and it's an outlaw. Like all the cards I've just
That's
named,
true. It's be so good with Vial Smasher.
They're all outlaws, so outlaw synergies matter.
Yeah.
So it matters for red black too. Next is Treasure Dredger. This lady kind of looks like a werewolf, even though she's not. 1 and a black, human rogue. You may 1 and tap, pay 1 life, create a treasure token.
Nice.
It's a 2/2. 1 mana 2/2 that you can pay 1, tap her, pay a life, make treasures.
Yeah, you're investing in her while you have your plot set up.
Yep, very good. And then the last, my honorable mention, is the Rictus Robber, which we talked about earlier. This is the 3 and a black zombie rogue. When it enters the battlefield, if a creature died this turn, create a 2/2 black and red zombie token. You can plot for 3. It's a 4/3. So in sacrifice, this matters.
Yeah.
Really matters. In red black, this matters. It's a rogue. It's also plotting. Like you can just make a 4/3 that makes a 2/2 for 4, or for free if you've plotted it.
I wonder how much the colors matter, because I think you said red and black, but it's blue and black. But is there going to be like any protection from colors or anything like that? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so. Not that I've seen.
Not that it. Yeah.
That's it for black. Moving on to red. Red commons. Discerning Peddler. 1 and a red. When Discerning Peddler enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. It's
nice. So good.
Yeah, and a battlefield discard draw.
It's Scrapbook, man.
It's
playing that card all day.
Yeah, it's a loot. But it's also a rogue. So that matters. Not much more to say. It's just great. Next is Deadly Duelist. I'm so excited for this card specifically because I love doing this derpy stuff. It's 1 in a reg, Human Assassin. It's a 1/3 with reach. You may pay 1 and tap her. Deal 1 damage to target opponent.
Yeah.
This matters for committing crimes. This matters because you can just be in like your red-blue spell slinging deck. Be like, oh, I'll block your thing. End step.
Yeah.
Tap it.
Terrific blocker.
Do one to you. And just do that over and over again. You get 2 of these, and you're like, pop, 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 pop. I love doing
that. Is an insane blocker, though. The fact that it has 3 toughness. I mean, we've noticed most of these flyers are 1 and 2 power.
Yeah. Next is Prickly Pear. I also love the flavor. They're like cactuses with.
Was there any target on that gunslinger?
That's a good question. Deadly Duelist. I think it's to target opponent. Target opponent.
Man.
No,
it makes sense, but
be too broken.
She has to get rid of these guys that can pump the flyers.
No, that'd be so bust up. Prickly Pear. 2 and a red. These cactuses with guns. I love it. And they're a pair.
Yeah.
2 of them. Love. And it's making a reference
Plant
to
mercenaries.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When Prickly Pear enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary token with target creature you control gets +1/0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. The 3 mana 2/2 that also makes a 1/1.
Yeah.
And again, it's an outlaw. Been saying it a lot. Outlaws matter. And
it's true that those 1/1s that you make are also going to be outlaws. So that's all going to start adding up.
Yep.
Maybe it's Mardu.
Oops. I didn't. I messed up that link too. Sorry, Todd. So the next one is Mine Raider. Mine Raider is a human rogue for 2 and a red. It's a trample 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another outlaw, make a treasure token.
Nice. That trample is going to be very important.
It will.
Doesn't seem like it is, but there's just so many ways to pump your guys right now.
Yeah, it's
also the combat tricks are pretty cool in this set.
Yeah, I agree. It's just the ability of like, if you remember in what was it? Lost Caverns of Ixalan, the pirate that made a treasure, the 3/2 pirate that made a treasure.
Right.
Yeah, it just like it happened every time. And if you're playing red black outlaws anyway, it's just a 3/2, but this one has trample.
Right.
The other one didn't have trample. So
yeah, exactly. Which made it a bad creature. So it's like, okay, this guy sucks sometimes.
It was fine for like blue-red artifacts or like if you're trying to ramp in green, but like this will probably do all of that, and you'll probably get the treasure most of the time. You know?
Right.
Next, Reckless Lackey. This is a first strike haste goblin pirate. It's a 1/2. You may pay 2 and a red, sacrifice Reckless Lackey, draw a card, and create a treasure token.
Nice.
Yeah, it again meets the requirement of Outlaw. It's haste, so it will get in some chip damage, and then later you can be like, oh, I'll just draw a card and get a treasure token too.
Feels like they'll like that for Boros Convoke. Maybe one of.
Yeah. There we go.
Explosive Derailment. Oh boy.
Yeah, Explosive Derailment is.
Is that a train?
No, it's not. But it looks like a train is getting exploded.
Nice.
So Explosive Derailment. 1 red. This is a spree card. This is my honorable mention. It's 1. For an additional 2, you can deal 4 damage to target creature.
Yeah.
For another additional 2, you can destroy target artifact.
Nice.
I just thought the modality of being like 3 mana deal 4 at instant speed.
Yeah.
Mattered.
Yeah, that's the first thing I saw. I was like, 5 mana removal kind of sucks. Oh, instant? Okay, never mind.
Right. Well, and it's 5 mana to do 2 modes.
Yeah, if you hit the artifact as well, right?
Yeah. 3 mana just deal 4 at instant speed, I think is already just good enough.
Yeah.
Moving on to uncommons. First one is Scorching Shot. And Scorching Shot says it's double red, deal 5 to target creature.
Nice.
I thought double red, deal 5, like, that's just a great removal spell.
Yeah.
Like, you're happy to get that.
I mean, we play Grasp of Darkness. This is an extra damage.
Right.
I mean, not minusing, so not going to kill the indestructible guy, but still.
Yeah, it might be a little tough if you're playing mono red, it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be tough to hit on 2. I don't think you're ever looking to shoot something for 5 on 2, but yeah, it's still like a really good removal spell.
Right.
The next one is Cunning Coyote. This is part of my shout outs of like being super fun. This is the shout out to like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Both of them have made this uncommons list.
Have you seen the artwork of them next to each other?
Yeah.
It's so precious.
Good. And some people get really peeved by like, oh, like Magic's just doing too much with all their stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. A Coyote and a Roadrunner would be in Magic anyway.
Don't do that. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just have fun. You don't like it?
I think that
just have fun.
Yeah, I think it's understandable for people
to be
better
for
frustrated. I think it's understandable for people to be frustrated about like Magic doing this just to try and get people out of Magic, because it feels like they're just like trying to cop out or like go with the mainstream.
Yeah.
But for me as a Magic player who's been playing Magic for a long time, it's making me feel like this game that I already love now has a sentimental piece to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't tell you, there's a green card that's like an enchantment with flash, and it's called Reach for the Sky.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just took me back to like Toy Story.
Well, they hit all the Overwatch players too with the High Noon.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, even with this, it's like, okay, this is Cunning Coyote. You look at the artwork, you look at this like Lightning Fox, and you're like, okay, this guy's just cool. We're in the desert already. It's just a cute homage, you know?
Yeah,
so it's like
a cute homage.
It's, I don't know, nothing to get upset about, but I do agree. I've seen some people that freak out about that kind of stuff. I'm just like, come on, man. Like, if you don't like it, don't draft it. I'll take it. It's a great card. It's a great card.
So, what it reads, it's 1 in red, Coyote, haste. When Cunning Coyote enters the battlefield, another target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn, and it's a plot for 2. So, you can just get in with a 2/2 haster on turn 2. Or later on, you can be like, I'll just hold it with plot. Oh, look, I've got this big baddie. Now I'm going to play both of them. They both get haste. And another creature gets +1/+1.
I mean, of all the 2 mana red haste 2/2s, this is one of the craziest ones.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good.
Very good.
I think it actually probably gets played in standard.
It could, for sure. Oh, for sure. Another thing to help mono red, right?
They need it.
This card is so exciting to me because I think it's one of my favorite parts about Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Mm-hmm.
This is Longhorn Sharpshooter, 2 in a red, Minotaur Rogue, Reach, 3/3. When Longhorn Sharpshooter becomes plotted, it deals 2 damage to any target.
Oh, wow.
3 mana with Reach, 3/3. Already not a bad body. But why I like it so much is that I like some of these cards that like are rewarding you for plotting them, because then you can get a 3/3 with Reach. You're paying 4, but it will also shoot something for 2.
Yeah.
Like, it matters for committing crimes. It also can just be like a removal if you're like wanting to play a slower game.
Well, you also plot face up, right? You're not like putting them down like surprise cards. You're going like, I'm gonna do this later, just so you know. So the fact that it's like 4 mana instead of getting the 3 mana 3/3, you're like, if I hold it or if I draw it late game, I got a shock, and then I got this really good body.
Yeah.
And 3/3 reach is going to be really high impact in this format based on all the bodies we've seen so far.
Yeah. I love plotting that has the ability to like reward you for plotting. Like plotting itself is already good, but like it getting more upside, I'm like, these cards are cool. This next one is for you blue-red players. Magebane Lizard, 1 in a red. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, Magebane Lizard deals damage to that player equal to the number of non-creature spells you've cast this turn. It's a 1/4. So this boy be blocking. And this boy, every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell, a non-creature spell, period, you're shooting damage equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn.
Why is it a 1/4?
Like, so then I started blasting.
Yeah, no, this guy is cracked.
They should have just made this lizard Danny DeVito.
It should be a 1/1. yeah, right, Danny DeVito. Why is this a 1/4 and then it has Storm? Like, what's going on? There's also that one Storm card, right? Like, I don't know if you saw it. It's like 5 mana. Give like the next spell you cast Storm or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like, what's going on?
It's so good. It's so.
This lizard is nuts.
Yeah, this card is crazy. I'm so excited for a blue-red like control-y spell slinging deck.
Well, it's spell slingers in the Cowboy set, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Also, rest in peace, spell slingers, for all the people that played.
Next is Scalestorm Summoner. This is 2 in a red. When Scalestorm Summoner attacks, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. If you are doing the big dudes deck thing, you making a 3/1 every time this creature attacks, I think is really good.
You keep it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It doesn't go away.
That's crazy. The fact that you keep it that's really gross.
Yeah, it is really gross. I think this will come in very niche circumstances, which I'll talk about later.
I think that guy really depends on how many combat tricks you have.
That is also true. The next is our Roadrunner, Resilient Roadrunner, 1 and a red, haste, protection from coyotes, super flavorful. You may pay 3. Resilient Roadrunner can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste.
Yeah,
so it's you pay an additional 3 mana, and it becomes Ginger Brute until end of turn.
Right. Yeah, when I saw the spoilers, I was like, wait, these are both nuts. Like, so good.
Yeah, the card is crazy. And then my honorable mention, I didn't even say what name it was. It's Hellspur Brute, 4 and a red, affinity for Outlaws.
Affinity for Outlaws.
It's a 5/4 trample. 5 mana, 5/4 trample. If you play Outlaw.
1 mana.
Yeah, right. Like the 5/4 trample. I'm afraid.
No, but like even like on turn 3, you're like Outlaw, turn 3, 5/4 trample. Like, come on, that's crazy.
Have mercy, my brother.
Into the green we go.
Next we're into the green we go. That was good. I appreciated that.
No problem.
Next is Hard Bristle Bandit. Hard Bristle Bandit. This card is scary for me. It's 1 in a green, a plant rogue. Add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you commit a crime, untap Hard Bristle Bandit. This ability only triggers once each turn.
Okay.
So it's a mana dork that if you're like, I'm gonna tap it to like kill your thing, untap it, cast something else.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
2 mana 1/1 dork that you get to untap whenever you commit crimes. Sounds decent. Next is Spinewood. And by decent, I'm understating it. Spinewood, or that card is crazy. Don't. Next is Spinewood's Paladin.
Oh, not
I'm
this.
I'm so excited for this card, dude.
I hate these kind of cards.
These cards are so good every time.
Every time I lose to one of these, I get so mad.
Yeah, because the card's great. 4 mana, 4 and a green, trample. When Spinewood's Paladin enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life.
Yeah.
You can also plot it for 4.
Yeah.
So you can pay 4, put this 5/4 with trample off for a turn, and it ETBs you gain 3 life. This card's just great.
Yeah.
Every green deck is like, oh, I can play this massive body and then also gain 3 life. No problem. That's it.
I just realized that mana dork and the guy that like pings for 1 are like best friends.
Wait, which guy that pings for 1?
The spell shooter. It's like reach 1/3, pay 1, shoot him.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
pay the mana. Okay, now I'm gonna do my turn.
This card I think is correct. So Free Strider Commando. 3 and a green. Free Strider Commando enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it if it wasn't cast or no mana was spent to cast it.
If it wasn't. Oh, interesting.
3 and a green. Why this card is correct. I will give a little bit of spoilers.
This is a 3-drop for that angel, or not the angel, the bird that reanimates if you have a saddle.
Yep.
Like boom, 5/5.
Yep. Boom, 5/5. Boom, 5/5. Or you plot it, you still get the 5/5.
Yeah, on turn 5, which is nice.
Or you have Reanimator in green black, which, spoilers, the green black Reanimator is not well supported. But if you're doing 5-color things with reanimating, you still get this 5/5. And usually when you're wanting to do 5-color stuff, green is a main color. So I think that this card will be a 5/5.
That's true. The mana dork is any color, right?
Yes.
That's going to be big.
Man, I was doing this so fast. Or Todd. The last one, I love the name of it, is Ankle Biter. 1/1 Death Touch Snake. Yeah. Honorable mention because that guy's always a pain to block later. And we always like the 1/1 Death Touchers. They get they get to chump early, and then later you're like, wow, this card is like the most annoying card to play with. I'd love if Google Docs decided to work a little bit easier today. Next is the uncommon Intrepid Stablemaster.
Already on the green uncommons. Okay, we're cruising.
Uncommons. I'm trying so hard to not make this 2 hours. Intrepid Stablemaster. 1 in a green, reach. It can tap to add 1 mana of any color. It can tap 2 to add 2 mana of any color. Spend this only to cast mount or vehicle spells.
Ooh, okay.
So like in Constructed, this could be for like vehicle payoffs, which there aren't a ton of vehicles in this. But spend 1 mana to cast any dude or 2 mana for mount creatures. Yeah, that's the cooking face.
Yeah.
He's like,
sorry.
He's like, hold on, I'm cooking.
Hold up.
Yeah, 2 mana 2/2 with reach. That is just a mana dork by itself. That also can like be a double mana dork.
That's nasty. That card seems good.
Yeah, really good. Next is the Aloe Alchemist. 2 mana 3/2 with trample. When Aloe Alchemist becomes plotted, target creature gets +3/+2 against trample until end of turn. You can plot for 2. So you can be like, oh, I've got a board already. I'm going to plot this guy for later.
Yeah.
Give something +3/+2 in trample. And then later I can cast a 3/2 with trample.
I can't wait for somebody to win with this by buffing their opponent's creature and committing a crime.
I also was thinking that too with the red spell. Like that indestructible guy. I'm going to give your dude first strike for me.
Yeah. And it's like already tapped. Buff your guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of like the plotting by targeting your own pump spells on opponent's dudes. That's awesome. And people are not going to be expecting it. Next is Gold Rush. It's 1 in a green. It's a pump spell. Create a treasure token. Until end of turn, up to 1 target creature gets +2/+2 for each treasure you control.
What is that?
Yeah.
That's gross. Wait, that's really gross. That actually might be like constructed playable.
Because if you have multiple treasures for other things, it's like, oh, my dude is massive now.
This is what that other guy from Ixalan wanted. The like 3-drop, make a treasure. Because I hated that card. It was such a trap. That's like worth it.
Yeah, it's really good. For your go wide thread.
Oh, the treasure maker girl. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then you're like, my dude is lethal.
What is this format?
Right. Next is Raucous Entertainer. I just love that it's like some cactus dude that's playing the piano.
Yeah.
It's a plant bard.
It's a good art. The artworks have been so good this set.
1 and tap. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control that entered the battlefield this turn.
That's not bad.
So if you're plotting things, or if you're making tons of tokens.
Well, this kind of effect, I feel like in general, is not that bad. If you're making tons of tokens, it also has really good synergy with Prairie Dog, which if you can get both of them as uncommons, you're really happy.
Yeah. And then, or if you're just plotting stuff.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. They all get counters. Next one was Full Steam Ahead. At first I looked at this and was like, this is kind of bad. But then I thought about it for a while and I was like, this is like Craterhoof. 3 and green. Sorcery. Until end of turn, each creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample. This creature can't be blocked by more than 1 creature.
Yeah.
Your whole board gets +2/+2 and gains trample, and they can't be double blocked.
Is there anything that gives I think we've seen a couple cards that give menace or have menace. If you have a way to like get a ton of guys with menace, now they're unblockable. This is like, I mean, it's already good, but like, yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's like green black has the ability, like black has the ability to give menace, so that could happen.
It's just a good finisher for sure.
Yeah, the next card's one of our big baddies. It is 4 green Spinewoods Armadillo. It's a reach 7/7 with ward 3. You can pay 2 mana, discard Spinewoods Armadillo, search your library for a basic land card or desert, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You gain 3 life. So if you need to ramp or you need to be mana fixed, boom, you just discard your Armadillo.
Yeah.
Or you can get a 7/7 with reach and ward 3 for 6.
This is a very good card.
Yeah. Card's got a lot of modality.
It's like Topiary Panther on steroids.
Yes. And it matters if you're doing the deserts thing.
Right, exactly.
My honorable mention is Beastbond Outcaster. It's 3 and a green. When Beastbond Outcaster enters the battlefield, if you control the creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. It's got plot for 1 and a green.
These spot cards, man.
So many.
That's really good. Multicolored.
Yeah, multicolored stuff. I just put down
Broken
the stuff that was broken because a lot of the multicolored cards on Uncommon are good and they're like built to be for
your
the decks that like the archetypes. So they're already built that way.
Yeah.
But I just put down the stuff that I was like, this is
like
just
Dromoka's Command? Wow, that's really good.
Yeah. It's just like this is the stuff that's like uber mega broken.
Okay.
Gem Lightfoot Sky Explorer. This also makes me laugh, like the names, because it makes me think of like Pecos Bill and like, you know, the old American West. Like they really went hard on the names. And I'm like,
this is like AP US history all over again.
Yeah, it's really fun. Legendary creature Human Scout. Flying, Vigilance, 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, draw a card. Oh, a 3/3 with Vigilance and Flying. If I haven't cast a spell, I draw a card at the end of my turn? Okay. Sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That makes me really like the green guy that can pump your guys that came in, and that give all guys +2 card, because it feels like this format is going to get really gummed up where you're like, I'm cool with waiting, and your opponent might be like, I'm also cool with waiting, and it's like first guy to hit their.
Yeah.
So it's like it's actually kind of thematic because you're like, you know, stare down like. When am I gonna bah, bah, bah. Or like
high noon.
Have you seen the meme with Takeshi 6ix9ine where he's like telling a story about hearing some gunshots and he's like, yeah, and then the guy pulled out his gat and he was like, honk, honk, honk. That's gonna be what's happening, bro. That's gonna be me for release.
Pre-release. Get ready. Bring your cowboy hats. Next is Wrangler of the Damned. Very similar. This is a 3 white-blue flash creature, human soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, create a 2/2 white spirit token with flying. It's just a big blocker. And again, if you're doing this standoff stuff, every end step, you're going to start making 2/2s.
Yep. Okay.
And you can do it on your opponent's end step. So then you can go Hellbent.
Right.
And like not have something to do on the next turn. So silly. The next one's at knife point. This is red-black.
You brought a gun to a knife fight.
Yeah. As long as it's your turn, outlaws you control have first strike.
Okay.
It's for 3, 1 red-black. Whenever you commit a crime, create a 1/1 red mercenary token with target creature you control gains +1/0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. This ability only triggers once each turn. So
gross.
If you commit a crime, you make 1/1s, and then those 1/1s can give those 1/1s have first strike, and then they can give +1/0. And this
I want to play Mardu so bad.
That's first strike for other things. So yeah, you're just all of your outlaws have first strike, and then you're making more outlaws that have first strike.
Eartha
Joe.
Eartha Joe. It's such an unfortunate name.
Eartha Joe. Yeah, again, it makes me feel like Wild Westy. 2 red, white, legendary creature, core, advisor. When Eartha Joe Frontier enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with target creature you control gains +1/0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or a player, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So the 1/1s that you give +1/0 to, you get to do it twice.
Yeah.
For each one. Holy
gross.
Yeah, gross. Next is an Intimidation campaign. Click on it for me, please. Intimidation Campaign. Okay, this was the card that I was like, oh man, this blue-black deck, I can't wait. 1 blue-black enchantment. When Intimidation Campaign enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life, and you draw a card. Whenever you commit a crime, you may return Intimidation Campaign to its
This
owner's
is
hand.
so cool. This is just like Disinformation Campaign.
Yeah. So
except you're not for surveils, it's for crimes, which is so much easier.
So this card isn't committing a crime itself because it's each opponent, so it's not targeting.
Well, it would just go infinite if it did.
Right. But whenever then you're just like, oh, I'm going to kill your stuff, bounce this back to my hand, do the thing again.
Which actually would be kind of cool, like 3 mana.
It would be cool, but it'd be very...
I think committing a crime is easy enough that it's going to feel like that anyway, but that's so gross.
Yeah. The next one was that card we talked about at the beginning with Outlaws, the Vile Smasher, Gleeful, Grenadier, Black-Red. Whenever an outlaw enters battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. It's also committing a crime itself.
I love how many of these cards exist in the format, though, because it's going to be like, oh, we're standing off. You're chilling. Ping, 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 ping. Chill all you want. You know what I mean? Like, it's over.
Next is the Black-Blue Lazav Familiar Stranger. It's 1 blue-black. It's a legendary creature shapeshifter. I love the name on this because Lazav takes the form of other creatures. It's Familiar Stranger.
Yeah.
Really clean on the name here. And with all the faces in the background.
Also, Lazav is just cool.
Yeah.
Like, every time they make a new one, I'm like...
So he's a 1/4 shapeshifter. Whenever you commit a crime, put a 1/1 counter on Lazav Familiar Stranger. Then you may exile a card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, you may have Lazav become a copy of that card until end of turn. This ability only triggers once each turn. So you get a counter, you can become a copy of another dude.
My goal with this card is to use it against somebody that's playing that 5 mana white card. I'm targeting this. Me too, buddy.
me as well.
Now it'd be funny, actually. You know, have you ever seen the meme where it's like cleave and it's vindicate, but the cleave is on the V and it's like indicate and the cleave cost is free?
Yeah.
It's like if they actually made an indicate like an actual like just target, like that would actually be so funny.
Man, such good stuff here. Oh, here's your Aristocrats deck for you. This card is disgusting. I am so upset about this card, and I love playing black-white, but this card is... Oh my gosh. I love Aristocrats. It's like one of my favorite decks to play in Limited. Ruthless Lawbringer. 1 white-black. It's an assassin, vampire assassin, so it's also an outlaw. When Ruthless Lawbringer enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent.
So not quite vindicate, but pretty close.
This feels like almost constructed playable to me.
For sure.
If I'm playing a sacrifice deck and I sack something and go, oh, I'm destroying something.
I think this is automatically like a commander staple.
Yes.
At the very least.
Holy moly.
That's a really good card.
Yeah. Last is Old Rustian for multicolored broken stuff. It's Honest Rustian. 1 black-green, human warlock. When Honest Rustian enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It's a 3/2. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
That's so cute. I gotta tell Shannon about that.
Now I'm gonna move to artifacts. Let's move to our colorless stuff. There's not a lot. Don't worry. I know this episode's getting long. Silver Deputy. 2 mana, artifact creature, mercenary. When Silver Deputy enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or desert card, reveal it, then shuffle it, and put it on top. You can then give target creature you control +1/0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery, and it's a 1/2.
That's a free ability, by the way. Just tap.
Yeah, just tap.
Oh, and it can target your opponent's creatures, unlike the mercenaries.
Oh, that's
no, sorry, no, you control. Never mind.
You control.
So he actually is a mercenary. He just happens to be like the simulacrum version of your red mercenaries.
Yeah, and I think that this card is like, oh, you're wanting to play the 5-color soup. You've got this guy. You're searching for the land you need, and you're putting it on top. It's right. It's just good. And he also fits the outlaw bill. Next is Gold Pan, 2 mana artifact equipment. When Gold Pan enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Equip creature gets +1/+1, and it equips for 1.
Nice.
Yeah, just good equipment that also like gets you a treasure. So it's like
exactly everything with treasure now you have to be afraid of if you're playing against green.
And then last is Oasis Gardener, 3 mana, Scarecrow, 2/2. It's a mana dork, so it taps for 1 mana of any color, but when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I don't want to get blown out by aggro, but I also need this thing to help me fix. Well, now it gains 2 life too.
The gain 2 life is really nice on that, because even if it just blocks, you're kind of happy.
Yeah. Next is the Lava Spur Boots. We're moving to the uncommons for artifacts. 1 mana, equipped creature has +1/0 and has haste and ward 1, equipped for 1. This kind of is like Lightning Greaves, but mini Lightning Greaves.
Yeah.
+1/0 and has ward 1 and haste, equipped for 1.
Right.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fact that it gives haste is going to be kind of scary.
This card is also what I wanted for the control decks. I think this card's crazy.
Boombox.
2 mana, artifact, pay 6 tap, destroy up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target land.
I see.
Yeah, 6 mana, I'm destroying at a minimum 1 of your lands.
I'm putting that in Tron.
And a creature. Plus, if they have any artifacts, you're just getting all 3. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
This game's cracked. Last is Bandit's Hall. 3 mana, artifact. When you commit a crime, put a loot counter on Bandit's Hall. This ability triggers once each turn. You can tap it for a mana of any color. You can also pay 2, remove 2 loot counters, draw a card. Again, in your control list, you're like, every time I target something, I'm getting a counter, and I can either use this as a rock, or I can use this to draw cards.
Yeah.
This also feels like a commander card to me.
Can you look up a card for me really quick?
No.
What up? I think it's called Forbidden Orchard.
Oops.
I'm just curious if this targets, because I can't remember. It's a land that like makes any color, but you give your opponent a spirit. I just can't remember if you target them. Oh, it is target. Oh, okay.
Whenever you tap Forbidden Orchard, put a 1/1 spirit creature token into play under target opponent's control.
Yeah, okay. Nice. I just wanted to know for sure, because a lot of these cards seem kind of cracked, but like the cards that I'm thinking about are like anything that's like you commit a crime for effectively nothing, which is like Forbidden Orchard is like, I want to just make mana. Okay, tap my land, target you.
Committing a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna. Again, committing crimes to me is gonna change Magic a lot, because it's things that decks are already doing.
Right. Well, I can't wait to see what the commander decks look like. Honestly.
Yeah. So next, I'll just go into quick color rankings. I think that based off of just if you were listening early in this episode, all these cards that we said were really broken, and this is just off of my initial research. Obviously, I haven't played with the cards. Obviously, there's like I have no idea what multicolor stuff is gonna look like.
Plus, draft could look differently than sealed.
Right. But, and I mean this overall, though, for the whole format. Draft, sealed. I think black, so far, front runner. Black looks crazy, and it looks like it can go multiple places well. Aristocrats, black, red, blue, black. Well, black's doing everything.
Yeah, it's hard to argue.
Next is red. The red cards just look incredibly powerful, and also in a similar vein. Like, we had so many cards in red that we were like, why is this doing so many things? The peddler that lets you draw a card, discard a card. That card goes in every deck.
Yeah.
The prickly pear, 3 mana, make 2 dudes. Do you want that in red white? Yes. Do you want that in red black? Yes. They're also mercenary, or they're also outlaws.
Yeah, red almost feels like it's so high tier because all of its combos are just good.
Yeah. Especially
black, which happens to be your favorite for the front runner.
Yeah. The Deadly Duelist being a 1/3, it's shooting opponents. Like it's a good blocker. You don't necessarily want it in aggro, but it does matter because it is an outlaw, so it could be fine in black-red. And it also is good for red-blue that's spell slinging because you doing those 1 point of chip damage matters in that kind of deck.
Right.
Followed by that is white. White had like the dog, just
cow.
The creatures are really strong by themselves. And then when you put in some of the synergy pieces, you can go beyond that. Blue and green didn't have as much, in my opinion. Like blue just feels like it's a support color at best. Like you never want a deck that's mainly blue, based off of what we're seeing. And
I mean, the best blue deck we could think of was playing with black.
Right. And the same is true for green. Like green doesn't feel good as green red. It doesn't feel good. It feels good with green white, because white's really powerful, and like they saddle, like there's saddle synergies between the two of them. You can do some cool things with black and green.
So Selesnya specifically seems like it could be a top 3, top 4.
Oh, absolutely. But green, just like alone, I don't think you ever want green either, unless you're doing 5-color stuff. I don't think you want green either. It's like a main color. So that's my initial power rankings. Now I'm going to go into like the traps. Like these were notes that I had for decks, and I put statistics to like help you out with that too. So green black, 8 cards in the whole set have support with graveyards mattering between uncommons and commons. 2 of those additional cards like aren't necessarily for graveyards specifically, but like you may care about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's 10 cards of the whole format.
Yeah.
That is not a lot. So like the whole like graveyards matter cards, I think are traps.
Or you just have to have gotten the really good rare mythic.
Yeah, or you're doing like 5 color stuff.
Sure.
And like, so you want to be buying back your creatures only because they're bombs, not because you're trying to do graveyard synergies.
Sure.
Next was red green. I looked up specifically the power matters thing. I counted 7 cards with power 4 or greater that are not a rare. 7 between 2 colors. 7 cards that have power 4 or more.
Yeah.
So I don't think that really matters. You don't want to be doing green red big bodies because there's just not a lot of them.
Right.
With rares, you've got 15. You've got 17 if you're going Naya. Still, that's not a lot.
Yeah.
Like you have to like, oh my gosh, I finally got it in one. Like I'm going to get that deck once.
Yeah.
On the whole format.
Well, I can see red green being good. It's just not with its archetype. Kind of like how blue white would be pretty good in L train, but not if you were playing tap out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just like what he said matters in the sense that like, oh, I don't know how that's going to matter with combat tricks.
Yeah.
Because then the power thing may be different if we've got combat tricks or we're adding counters to things. But just based off of power and toughness, red green 4 power or greater doesn't have enough support. The other card I wanted to mention was, which is a trap, is specifically Shoot the Sheriff. This is destroy target non-outlaw creature. Well, guess what? 69 cards in the format are outlaws. So that black uncommon removal spell doesn't hit 69 creatures.
Yeah.
That's a lot of downside. So yeah, it could be like a constructed card, but
I guess it just really depends on how many the bombs there are. They just are not these outlaws, because there was quite a few, like 5-6 traps that were like really, really scary creatures that it's like maybe you just need it because it's like your only removal for like some late game threat. Maybe, you know what I mean?
But like if you think, I don't know how many creatures there are normally in a set, but if there are like, let's say 100.
Right.
If there are 100, this hits only 30% of cards.
Yeah, that's like you really have to hold this for the one guy that you lose to.
Yeah, because
if you're playing it,
it's just not hitting a lot. It also doesn't hit mercenary tokens because those are all outlaws.
Yeah. I mean, it might be like Shoot the Sheriff. It's just a sideboard removal spell for when you're playing your best of 3s.
Yeah, or they're playing like green white, which like doesn't have a lot of outlaws in it because it's doing saddling things with like cute animals.
Right. And then I believe this is blue green, not black green.
Yes, thank you. Blue green only has 15 plot spells. There specifically is like a blue green bear that says like your plot spells cost 2 less, and
that's weird.
Yeah, and
so that one wants to be banned, honestly.
Yeah. So it's Doc Hourlock Grizzled Genius. Spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast. Plotting cards from your hand cost 2 less to cast.
Oof.
Which again sounds like, oh, that sounds like a really good card. It's a trap because there are only 15 plot spells within blue and green.
Right.
So
if you get that guy, you really are looking for like rainbow mana.
Yeah.
If you're doing 5 color,
sure, you can play this card. Otherwise, like this is not a great card for you. And then lastly, splashing. There's plenty of it. There's the multicolored deserts, and as Stan mentioned earlier, they do 1 damage to target opponent, which means the multicolored deserts are committing crimes just off of you playing the land. It's gonna matter a ton.
Also, please plan your land drops now. I mean, you should be doing it already, but don't play your land and then go, oh, I was supposed to summon my guy first. Now I don't get the crime because I already crimed. Like, remember, like if you're like turn 3 or 4, read the cards. If you're gonna play a guy that needs crimes, don't play the land and then, oh, can I take that back? No, you can't.
Yeah. So it matters. You also have fast lands. So like fast lands will also help you do splash as well.
Right.
There are deserts. I think the deserts that are the multicolored ones really matter. There are a handful of cards that like care about you having tons of deserts. Unless you're playing the 5-color deck, I don't think those cards matter because you're only like if you're playing 2-color, 3-color, you probably only have at most 3 or 4 deserts.
Yeah.
So like those desert synergy cards just really don't matter at all.
Right.
Because you only have a couple. The only time where those cards are like busto broken is if you're playing the 5-color and you like need as many deserts as you can get.
Yeah. But usually if you're doing that, you're only drafting bombs, and then you're like, well, this pack has nothing in it, take the land.
Yeah.
And you'll get like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah. The only caveat I wanted to mention was for some of those traps, those archetypes that I think are really unsupported in the format, like green black graveyards specifically. I'm sure there's a green black mid-range list. Red green 4 power and blue green plotting. I don't know if these cards are more viable or if these archetypes are more viable at 3-color. I do think that we will have a 3-color decks for sure.
Yeah.
5-color decks for sure. The mana really supports us being able to do that.
Yep.
So don't like give up hope and be like, I can never have these cards, because there are some scenarios in which I think they're good. I just think like as 2-color pairs, which are like the majority of your games, unless you're a very experienced drafter who's just going for 5-color because you really know what you're doing, I don't think that they're good 2-color decks. So just stay away from them as 2-color decks. But if you can make the synergy work, do it. And with that in mind, it's like a final top off of like all that we've talked about for pre-release. I think that this is going to be, like we've talked about before, like high power is not always high synergy, and high synergy is not always high power. I think that this is going to be a both format where like the synergies are really high and the power is also going to be really high, because a lot of these cards are doing a ton, which makes for very grindy Magic.
Yeah.
So just when you're building your decks, I never encourage people to like rush. I build pretty quickly because I'm so used to deck building and I've done my research to give to you before pre-release. But you really want to like look at what synergies you're making for your pre-release decks. If you just put good cards into your deck for this format, you're not going to win. You need to have good cards that synergize well together. And sometimes that means not playing a rare because you're playing a better synergy piece.
Right.
That's going to matter for this format specifically. There's a lot going on with like some really good payoffs. So you need to be able to just kind of prepare for that.
Yeah. To Frank's point, I know a lot of us kind of feel like we end up building our decks pretty fast. I personally end up usually building my draft deck pretty quickly. And what I started doing now, ever since Frank and I started doing Two-Headed Giant a lot, was I'll build a deck and I'm like, oh, I really like this and I think it's good. Take a photo of it. Or I build the deck and it's like, let's say I build Gruul. I'm like, I really don't like this. I think it's bad. Take it apart. Let's try 2 other colors. And then go from there. You know, maybe you find something you just wouldn't have found because you just weren't looking for it. And then as you're putting the deck together, you're like, oh, wow, my Boros is actually kind of cracked. I wasn't going to look at it because I had already built this red-green deck, but I took a photo of that deck, scrapped it, tried to build a different deck, or maybe you tried Dimir out, and you're like, okay, this is actually a lot better. So within 50 minutes, if you're starting to gain experience, you can put together 3 or 4 archetypes out of what your pool looks like in sealed, just to see what you got going. If you're drafting, it's a little bit more like this is what you're going for. But in sealed specifically, don't be afraid to be like, okay, well, bless you, I wasn't happy with what this looked like. Let's try something else. Because like Frank and I had a Two-Headed Giant where we literally built 6 decks until we were like, this is the one. And then what was left over ended up being our second best deck. And then that helped us because we were like, okay, well, you need all those colors. I'll take the leftovers from these colors. And that helped us like get the clean 3-0. Our decks felt so smooth that specific tournament. After that, in my own games, I started going like, well, sealed specifically, what am I not looking at? And could I look at it if I had the time. Okay, I have 20 minutes left in deck construction. You think you're happy with your deck? Just take a photo of it. You can pull all the cards out if you decided that ended up being your better deck anyway.
Yeah. So I know it was a lot. Please, if you feel like we're trying to get this episode out to you early so that you can have time to watch it more than once, prepare for pre-release.
Or at least digest it.
Yeah, because it's a lot, and things will change as people uncover more from the formats. But I hope this was a good primer to get you ready for pre-release weekend. Big shout out to First MTG Chicago for allowing us to use these cameras, posting our gameplay regularly. I've been sharing so much more of like my own games on YouTube because I've been back into playing more. So I'm seeing them come up and being like, oh, I 2-0'd this game. Oh, I 2-1 this game. It looked really sweet. Not showing everyone the games where I tanked. But the content's really great. So please go ahead and check out MTG Chicago's channel. And thank you for making our thumbnails. We appreciate that too. I had someone this week be like, the hospital one was my favorite. It was so funny. And I was like, thank you. I try to be real creative with those.
For sure.
Shout out to Nancy Steroids for our intro and outro music and for the music that I stream with. Go ahead and give him a listen on Spotify. He's been growing more and more. And part of that is because to all of you, thank you so much.
We really appreciate you guys checking him out.
Yeah.
Also, shout outs to Todd. He does all the editing right now for free. Really, really appreciate him. He's hooking it up to make sure you guys get these sweet visuals and increasing the quality of our content for you guys that we really desire to keep the content as fresh as possible for you guys. Also, shout out to Sports Hat Gaming. We really appreciate you guys shopping here, checking us out. We record here as of forever, so it is relatively quiet for the most part whenever we can get here alone. And if you guys need us to ship you stuff or products, check out our website. We're always happy to help. If there's something you're looking for specifically and you want to support us, shoot us a message. You can even DM me directly on Discord. I can try to get you stuff you're looking for if you want to specifically support us.
I do want to point out too, even more of a shout out to Todd, because specifically like in this episode, we point out a lot of cards, which means like, these episodes more than any other take a lot more time.
These are the hard ones for sure.
Yeah. And with Boar's Hat Gaming, right, we just talked a ton about Thunder Junction. I hope you got excited from these cards because I got excited from talking about all of it. Go ahead and buy some of the material, like some of the
get your sealed product
cards here. Yeah. Buy sealed cards here. It'll be a big help.
We're happy to ship, and you can order on our website.
Yeah. That's it. We really appreciate you coming to this episode. Hope that it preps you for the next, for our pre-release that comes up this weekend. And
shout outs to our patrons as always. And for all the viewers that are just with us for the ride, we appreciate you as well.
Yeah. And stay tuned for us to probably on the next episode talk about like RCQs, because we'll be like in it, or it will probably be after the first weekend of RCQs that we'll start to talk again.
Yeah, and also whatever Outlaws does for Constructed, I'm already ready.
Yeah, he was cooking on this episode. So.
Anyways, thanks for joining us as always. You guys have a good one.
See you next time.